Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This meeting is open to the public and is available through an online platform. Please subscribe to the Township of Wilmot YouTube channel to watch the live stream or view after the meeting. Delegations must register with Information Legislative Services Department. The only matters being discussed at this meeting will be those on the agenda. Need a motion to convene in open session. Recommendation that council reconvenes in open session at 7 p.m. sorta. That's moved by Councillor Gordick, seconded by Councillor Fanning. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Good evening and thank you for attending the Wilmot Township Council meeting of June 28, 2021. At this time, I would like to ask that we all take a moment and reflect on the horrifying discoveries happening at former residential schools across the country. As we approach July 1st, I encourage everyone to reflect on what this means for us and this country. Let us take a moment of silence now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And Councillor Hallman, would you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Just calling it up here. We acknowledge with gratitude as we gather virtually that Wilmot Township is located on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge that more children have been found. And our hearts are with the Indigenous community as these discoveries continue. We also want to acknowledge the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the settlers arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should only take what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we are reminded of this important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community as we continue down this path together in reconciliation.
Thank you, Councillor Hallman. Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. Next item is the minutes of the previous meeting. The recommendation that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as presented. Regular council meeting June 14th, 2021. That is moved by Councillor Fanning, seconded by Councillor Gerber. Are there any comments, questions, omissions, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no public meetings. We have no presentations. We have no delegations. There's no consent agenda, reports, correspondence, bylaws, notice of motions. The only item is okay. Councillor Fanning, you have a notice of motion or?
Yes, I do. I have a notice of motion.
Go, carry on.
As everyone knows, next week, a week from today on the 5th, we will be deliberating on the recommendations that are coming from First Peoples Group. The process has been longer than we anticipated it taking originally, but I believe it's been worth the time we took. First Peoples Group has done a really excellent job of reaching out to the community and ensuring that every effort was made to hear as many voices as possible through the process. As such, I think that we need to consider some very important factors in ensuring that next week's meeting allows time for us as council to share our thoughts with each other and the public as we deliberate and decide how to move forward. To that end, I'm bringing this notice of motion to adopt some special rules for that meeting. Whereas the Prime Minister's Path Community Engagement Project solicited public feedback from residents of Wilmot Township and beyond, and whereas the Council for the Township of Wilmot wishes to hear from members of the public who has a delegation to address Council on the findings and recommendations from the First Peoples, and whereas all members of the public who register as a delegation should have an equal opportunity to address Council within a reasonable time frame from the start of the meeting, and whereas the purpose of delegating at a Council meeting is to address Council rather than entertaining in a debate with Council, staff, or other members of the public. And whereas the only matter before Council at July 5th, 2021 special meeting of Council is the Prime Minister's Path Community Engagement Project. Therefore, be it resolved that for the July 5th, 2021 special meeting of Council, members of the public registering as delegations to address Council shall be allotted a maximum of 5 minutes to address Council. And further, that for the July 5th, 2021 special meeting of Council, the time allotted to delegations addressing Council, exclusive of Council questions, shall be capped at 2.5 hours, 150 minutes. And that the per delegation time may be lowered to ensure all registered delegations are heard. And further, that for the July 5th, 2021 special meeting of Council, each member of the public registered as a delegation shall be allowed to address Council once. I'm asking that we not only accept this, but we pass it tonight, and look forward to having a productive meeting.
Okay. Comments?
What's that?
Through you, Mayor Armstrong. So first on the table should be a motion to suspend the procedural rules for this notice of motion to be considered tonight. For it to be considered tonight, it needs to have a 2/3 majority vote.
Okay, so we have that motion. That would be Councillor Hallman, Councillor Fenning. Any comments on this motion to proceed? Do you have a comment now, Councillor Fisher, or are you waiting for the other?
Oh, but through you, Mayor Armstrong, I was going to second that too, but I think it's important that I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to say what their thoughts are on this very important subject, and I think going 5 minutes per person will give everybody a chance to speak. So I'm in favor of passing this motion tonight.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a comment on that, Councillor Hallman?
Thank you, through the chair. Councillor Fisher kind of So the comments that I echo, and that is I'm in support of that. I think that this makes sure that everyone has time and that it creates a space where we are consistent with the messaging coming forward ahead of time of that meeting. So thank you for bringing this ahead of time.
Okay. Councilor Gerber?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong. So should we be voting on the suspension of order to consider the motion and then discussing
Yes.
the motion? So I think we have a mover and a seconder for
Yeah.
suspending the rules to allow this motion to be considered tonight. So should we vote on that and then comment on the?
Yeah, well, I was looking for comments on
Yeah.
on the one, and now if
Yes,
we
I'm
have
in
no
favor
further.
of considering. I'm in favor of suspending the rules so that we can
Okay.
either pass it or not
Yep.
pass it tonight.
Okay. And Councillor Fenning, did you have something further to say, or did you just want us to go to the vote to suspend?
I'm ready to go to the vote.
Very good. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to suspend? That is carried. Thank you. We'll proceed with the motion as presented by Councillor Fenning. And Councillor Gerber, you wish to comment?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong. Just a quick question, given that Councillor Fenning and Councillor Fisher seem to believe that this was a good way to proceed. I was just curious if this was in any way, if this was sort of an idea that maybe the working group had to ensure that our meeting, that our next meeting was an orderly and open and accountable and democratic process, or if it was just something that that people just thought of. I mean, just curious.
Councillor Fenning, you wish to respond?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, indeed. You will see once, and I'm not sure if they're up. I have not had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting, which Councillor Fisher unfortunately missed due to connectivity issues. And I did call and fill him in afterwards. And tonight I'm having connectivity issues. But yes, we did discuss this at the working group, and we all, it was very clear that council needs to be able to speak with, we need to speak with each other on this subject, and we need to have this conversation in the public. And in order for that to happen effectively, it needs to not be in the 11th hour, so to speak, or even literally. So yeah, we believe that this is a fair way to proceed, and the committee was very much in favor, although the specifics of the motion were not discussed exactly at the meeting.
Super. Thanks for the background. So just on the logistics of the motion, doing my math right, or just checking if I'm doing my math right, I think the motion suggests 2.5 hours of delegations at 5 minutes each, with one chance to one opportunity to address council. So does that get us to 30 delegations approximately? Am I in the
30.
ballpark on that? Or
30 is 150 divided by the 5. You're
30,
good.
yeah, sorry, 20, yeah, 12, 12, and 6, 30, right? Is that where we're at? Okay, thank you. Just checking.
Should have been a math teacher, Councillor Gerber.
I taught math for a year. It was plenty for all of us.
Councillor Hallman.
Thank you through the mayor to the clerk. Can you just comment on procedurally what that will look like to notify the public of this motion should it pass?
Through you, Mayor Armstrong. Certainly, Councillor Hallman. So obviously this is happening this evening, and sort of that initial announcement, if it is passed by council. From that point, any person who registers will be advised. They will see the motion. They will be given this information as well on the page of the website where the engagement of the Prime Minister's path community engagement is on. This will be included there so that everybody who is considering can be added there. So or can see all the information right there. So as well, I would. We haven't really talked about whether or not it would be a social media thing. Through social media, we're trying to drive everyone to the website so they're getting all the information on this in one place. So that's sort of the best place if you have anybody who is asking you about being a delegation, take them to that page on the website. They will see the information from First Peoples Group. They will see the report and they will see delegation information right there.
Ms. Jackson?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add one little piece of clarity, I believe the notice of motion might have also indicated that if there's more than 30, that we can accept them and reduce the time from 5 minutes down to keep it within that 150 minutes. So just to ensure council is aware that they could have less time if we get a real influx of interest. And on the flip side of that, I don't think we really talked about this, Councillor Fanning, but if there are only 10 delegations, we would still stay to the 5 minutes and have more time for council to delegate. So I just want to make sure that that's fully understood by council, that is, I think, the intent, if I can speak for Councillor Fanning. Thank you.
What is the suggested time if we have the more than 30?
Through the mayor, it'll be divided by the number of participants. So it'll be 4 minutes and 10 seconds potentially, depending on where we're at. But we'll figure out a rounded figure to try and keep that reasonable.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Fanning?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong. Just a further comment on this. I've spoken a lot about supporting the public's access to council and in the council chambers or in the council meetings. But in this particular case, this is a subject that has received a very significant number of community responses. This, I believe, and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is now the highest response number that we've ever had for any questions put to the public. And so as a result, I believe that for the most part, I don't expect we're going to hear a lot of novel concepts or new perspectives expressed at the meeting. And while it's important for us to hear them as much as possible, I think that this really has to be focused on our deliberations. And that's why I am bringing this forward in this way. The other thing is just for people to consider and contemplate when we're talking about the length of time. When we were running for council, many places that candidates were invited to speak, we had 2 minutes. 2 minutes to convince a whole room full of people who've never met you to put an X beside your name on the ballot. So, it really forced me to get pretty concise with some things.
Thank you. Councillor Hallman?
Thank you to the mayor. One more clarification question for the clerk. So if we do exceed the 30 and we have that time frame, what will be the closing deadline for delegations? And then they'll be notified for that. I'm just thinking about, the flip end of it. If you're writing a speech, just to make sure, how that will be communicated logistically.
Through you, Mayor Armstrong, with the procedural bylaw that we have now, people can actually become a delegation right up to 1 hour before the meeting. So it's actually a very close call. What we would be doing in that case is because we are continuing to follow the procedural bylaw for that piece, is we would be advising anybody who has registered, and we have had certainly a lot of delegations with regards to this very important matter. We have had delegations come out to various other matters over the years. I cannot say that I can actually say that we've exceeded 30 in my 15 years that starting off as deputy clerk. I don't recall 30. That for Wilmot, that is a very large number. So if we actually do exceed 30, we would have a list of those people and we would send them a blind copied email advising them of any change in time. We will advise them also of this in advance and that they could receive an email within that final hour before the council meeting starts. So that means because this meeting is starting at 6, the deadline is 5. So they will shortly after 5 would receive that email.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they will have a warning that the time limit may be reduced depending on the numbers. So as long as they have that well ahead of schedule, they should be able to handle that. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Armstrong. I was going to mention the time change, but Ms. Mittelholz mentioned it there, 6 o'clock start instead of 7. So,
Okay, thank you. Are there any other notices motion or?
Sir, we've
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. And there are no other notice of motions. Any other announcements? Councillor Gordick, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Armstrong. I just wanted to announce that 40 years ago today, on June 28, 1981, Terry Fox quietly passed away at Royal Columbian Hospital in British Columbia, surrounded by the love of his family and friends. He was just 1 month shy of his 23rd birthday. For months on end, even in the depths of his own pain and suffering, he thought only of others. Countless lives have been saved and touched by Terry. His courage, selflessness, and resilience inspire all of us to work harder and to make the world a better place. While Canada and the 18 nations pause today to remember an iconic hero, we also recognize that the Fox family is still mourning the loss of their loved one. As we continue to celebrate Terry's life 4 decades later, we want you to know that you're all in our thoughts and hearts today.
Thank you. Well said. Councillor Hallman.
Thank you, through the mayor. I just wanted to thank the community for their contributing, and there's been about 400 maple leaves now decorated by children in the community, expressing how they're feeling in these unpredictable, or actually I say it's very predictable, but devastating times. There are many more that you can pick up from the Wilmot Rec Complex to decorate with your children and participate. We'll be leaving the rest of them with a box by the public art display on July 1st. So if you're looking for something to quietly do, to pay respects, please find some there. And thank you to everyone who has participated so far.
Thank you, Councillor Hallman. And I just want to comment on the Optimist Clubs of Wilmot had a swag bag handout today to the grade 8 graduates, and it was quite a success. And the graduates were very thankful for their bag of goodies. So, and it was a job well done, well coordinated. So appreciate always the work of the Optimist Club. Okay, next is my quarterly report. I've continuing to read and listen and watch and see different items. I've completed the 4 Indigenous educational programs that were provided by the region. I've watched a documentary, Nations at War, dealing with all the nations of watched a documentary, Driving While Black in America, an APTN documentary on Birth of a Family, dealing with the Indigenous people. There's a weekly TV shows on, sometimes it's on Rogers, other times it's on APTN, and it's called Diverse and Converse. It's conversations having to do with reconciliation and racism. And I was able to read an essay this past week on, it says, "Dear white people, wake up, Canada is racist." And that was an essay that I read. So it's ongoing and continuing, the education that I'm taking. Thank you. Councillor Hallman.
Thank you, Mayor, for that update. Can you share something that your takeaway from all of these things that you have watched and learned?
Well, I continue to see that there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of obstacles to overcome with all our communities. It's not any one community, but they all have obstacles to overcome to try and come together and to come to some sort of reconciliation and understanding so that the community can move forward as one community, as one country, one Canada, one race of people, because that's the way I see us, as one race, as opposed to multi-races. I think it's all just one. So those are my takeaways.
Sorry, I'm just going to reframe my question about you personally. What have you personally learned? You shared about how you feel communities, but what have you personally learned about racism?
Well, I mean, like anybody else, I recognize that racism exists, and it's something we have to try to overcome. And there's going to be a lot of work to do that, because there's a lot of aspects of it that have to be addressed from the time that people have to stop teaching children to be racist because they're not born racist, and people have to learn to accept others as human beings, which some people are having a hard time doing, and we have to deal with all those things. Those are the things that we need to address. People have to learn that the human race is all just everybody. There's no, it has to come to the point where there's no division in the eyes of everybody. And that's the hardest thing for us to achieve, is to get everybody to think that way.
And out of your 4 courses that you finished through the reconciliation piece that all elected officials are taking in the region, what is your personal, what was an aha moment that you had with that discovery? What is something that you took away for you personally as something you learned?
Well, I've known right from the beginning that I've always recognized everyone as one race. And the reconciliation is that we have to accept the fact with the Indigenous people that those atrocities occurred, and that they have to be addressed. And it's not too late at this point in time for the people responsible to be held accountable for it. And I think that needs to, that's part of the solution, is for people who can be and should be held accountable for some of those atrocities. But there has to be a complete investigation. It can't just be a blanket thing. It has to be an investigation, and the people responsible, they have to be pointed out and dealt with one way or another. But it's going to be a joint consultation with the Indigenous people and everyone else.
Thank you for your update.
Okay. So we have some business arising from the closed session. And the recommendation that confidential report PFRS 2021-012 be received for information, and further that council accepts a generous donation from Cabcan Inc. of approximately 0.18 acres of land west of the Theodore Schuler Boulevard Stormwater Management Facility, and further that the township assume all surveying and legal costs associated with the transfer, and that the township provide a tax receipt in an amount determined by an independent certified appraisal, the cost of which, including any review by the township solicitor, would be borne by the township. That is moved by Councillor Gordick, Councillor Hallman. All in favor? That is carried. Next item is a confirmatory bylaw. The recommendation that bylaw number 2021-34 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on June 28, 2021 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. Moved by Councillor Fisher, Councillor Fenning. All in favor? That is carried. So we need a motion to adjourn open council, that we now adjourn to meet again at the call of the mayor. That is moved by Councillor Gordick, Councillor Gerber.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes.
I believe that we actually are not adjourning, but entering closed.
We are adjourning the open session, and then we will be having a motion to go back into closed. Right?
Very well.
Pardon me, through you, Mayor Armstrong. Actually, my apologies. I should have caught this before we did the confirmatory bylaw. We should be going into going back into closed, and then we come out of closed, do the confirmatory bylaw, and then adjourn. My apologies. That was out of order.
I stand corrected. It's just like being at home. So we want to do a motion to go into motion to reconvene in closed session. Moved by Councillor Gordy, Councillor Gerber. All in favor? That is carried. To closed we go.